All right, welcome everybody. You're in the green room of DisrupTV behind the scenes. This is episode 190. So Ray, maybe you can help us get all of our guests introduced before we go officially live in a couple of minutes.
Yeah, I know. We've got an awesome episode this week, and we are talking about everything from COVID to privacy to post-pandemic resilience, what happens next, and we got some wonderful guests. So we'll do some quick introductions in order of appearance. So the famous Paul Doherty. Paul, where are you calling in from? What's going on? How are you doing?
Hey, good to see you, Ray and Vala. Yeah, calling in from New Jersey, and my home office, as you can see here. So you could get a little bit more insight into what I do with my time here with everything in the office. And yeah, things are going interesting, I would say. So we'll talk more about it as we go.
We'll definitely hit that. And Stacey, welcome. So where are you calling in from?
Thank you. Hi, great to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm calling from sunny Lafayette, California. The sun finally came out and it's Friday. Which I don't know that means anything anymore, but it means my kids don't have to get on Zooms tomorrow. So we'll take that as a win.
Awesome. It means your bandwidth gets better.
Yeah, exactly.
And Steve, where are you at today?
I'm in Sydney, Ray. Morning, Vala. Morning, Ray. Safe and sound in Sydney.
Like how early are you in Sydney?
Oh, let's not talk about that. It's pre-dawn and the bandwidth is good.
Oh, awesome. All right. Well, hey, it's been awesome having you guys here. This is wonderful. As you know, this is our Friday ritual. Every Friday we get people on here to talk about what's happening. We got authors, leaders, really insights coming from all different directions. But more importantly, this week we're going to spend a little bit talking about the situation in front of us. So with that, we're going to start our show soon. So Aubrey, do the countdown.
Perfect. Here we go. I'm going to pop Stacey and Steve out for now. We'll see them soon. All right, here we go. Bye, guys.
Welcome, everyone, to DisrupTV. My name is Vala Afshar. I'm the Chief Digital Evangelist at Salesforce and your co-host for episode 190. We've had 573 guests on our show. We welcome you to follow us on Twitter at DisrupTV Show. Send Ray, myself, and our distinguished guests your questions using hashtag DisrupTV, and we'll do our best to answer them live. It's my pleasure to introduce my co-host. He's the CEO and founder of Constellation Research. He's the best-selling author of Disrupting Digital Business, a book I often pick up to read to get inspired and learn more about the future. He's a regular contributor to Harvard Business Review, ZDNet, and many major media outlets. And in my humble opinion, one of the top followers on Twitter at RWANG0. Welcome, Ray Wang, to DisrupTV.
Hey, thanks a lot, Vala. And I'm here with my awesome co-host, Vala Afshar, as you know, one of the top people to follow on Twitter for CIOs, CMOs, and even CEOs, especially for inspirational thoughts. He's also in business press, business media, and more importantly, he also has an awesome book you should catch one day. So, but hey, it's not about us. It is about our awesome guests. And today we have, who do we have, Vala?
You know, one of our first guests on DisrupTV, he was with us on episode 13, and we're at 190. 4 years ago, helped really launch our show. And we're forever grateful for Paul Doherty, who's the Accenture Group Chief Executive for Technology. He's also the Chief Technology Officer. Paul oversees all aspects of developing and delivering technology capabilities, bringing innovation, intelligence, and deep industry expertise together with leading technologies from ecosystem of partners, including my company, to help clients reinvent their businesses as intelligent enterprises, innovating at scale. As the CTO, so the other half of his function, Paul's responsible for driving innovation through research and development activities at Accenture Labs, leveraging emerging technologies to bring the newest innovation to clients globally. He also oversees Accenture Ventures, which he founded, which is focused on strategic equity investments and open innovation to accelerate growth. He's responsible for managing alliances as well. He's got a lot, I don't even know how he sleeps. He's the co-author of Human Plus Machine, a best-selling book in terms of reimagining work in the age of AI. Both Ray and I have developed keynotes based on his book.
The Russian version.
There we go. I've literally traveled to India, Australia, around the globe, giving keynotes based on this book. So a must read for anybody that's trying to trailblaze and be a change agent. He's a must follow on Twitter, capital must follow at PAULDAUGH. Welcome back, Paul, to DisrupTV.
It's great to be here. I didn't realize it was episode 13. You know, kind of an ominous number. So I'm glad it went well.
Really, honestly, you helped launch our platform. So forever grateful. Really, thanks.
Yeah, no, you're on episode 51 and 104. So you've been on 3 times on this show. So it's awesome.
I'm working the prime number regression analysis.
No, 104 didn't work. We need to get you on 103 maybe. But more importantly, like you've been working hard on a bunch of things, and one of the areas that we've been hearing a lot about is your COVID-19 response, and thinking about that impact on the clients around the world. Let's start there. Let's talk about what's going on, because that's top of mind for almost every business technology conversation.
Yeah. Now I'll start off by painting context in the way that I look at this and we look at this, which is this is different than any other crisis that we've seen before for a couple of reasons. One is this has been precipitated by the largest ever massive change in human behavior at scale. Never before have a couple billion people changed their behavior almost instantaneously in the history of civilization. And never happened. The plagues, the wars, nothing ever did it at this scale. And there's tremendous human implications that are brought on by that, which is different than other crises we faced. The other big change, and it kind of leads into answering your question, is this crisis is happening at a time of what we've talked about before, which is exponential technology change, driving an unprecedented change in the way we do business. And the combination of the two means that the response to this is super interesting, because this isn't a crisis about just hunkering down and ceasing and stopping and optimizing costs. It's a crisis that's about change and acceleration and pivoting to somewhere new. And that's kind of what's at the heart of what I'm hearing. I'm talking to CIOs, CEOs, and people every day at our clients, and that's what we're hearing. Is yes, we gotta hunker down, we gotta conserve cash, we've got to reduce costs, do things more efficiently. But the quick discussion is how do I change my company to get where it needed to go? Because we did some research right before COVID that we released in Davos this year that it was a survey of 8,300 executives, and it highlighted that that companies weren't getting the value out of their technology investments by and large. The top 10% that were leaders in getting value out of their investments had double the performance of the rest. And what COVID did is it with this massive crisis and this massive change, is it highlighted this gap, and it's really now increased this digital gap and technology gap that exists between the leaders and the laggards. So I can talk specifically about what we're doing for some of the companies in the COVID response, Ray, which is your question, but that's kind of the broad spectrum here, which means this is a super interesting time and a really important time for anybody working in technology, because the response to this needs to be different than other periods like this that we went through.
Sure. My observation from an outsider, Accenture mobilized over 500,000 employees to work from home very quickly at the very beginning of this crisis. In April, you launched a platform to connect companies that were reducing their workforce to companies that were hiring. And that was a great example of how business can be the greatest platform for change, and how, your values create value, and how companies can help each other during this to help minimize the negative impact of the pandemic. Your company's helping thousands of my customers, Salesforce customers, to massively accelerate the digital transformation initiative. So in your illustrious career at Accenture, have you ever seen your company move so fast and do so much in such little time? I feel like we're seeing the best of Accenture. And so my question to you is, how is it? How is it that this giant company is moving like a startup and is actually helping the society in, as you said, this seismic event that none of us have ever experienced?
Yeah, it's been an amazing thing to be part of, and I think this is true of Accenture. It's true of some of the other companies that I've talked to. Is well, first of all, we have over 500,000 employees. About 270,000 of them are in technology, which is kind of my area. And what we did very early, like when we saw the signs of this in China and saw it emerging, we started the preparation everywhere in every country: India, Philippines, U.S., Europe, all the places we operate, because we were concerned about what the spread would do. So I think we were fortunate that we took this proactive stance, so that when we did hit periods of disruption in any country, we're ready. We'd purchased the backup laptops, equipment, Wi-Fi hubs, what have you, and had positioned our people. We'd moved desktops out of offices, and we're doing that proactively. So when the shutdowns came, and some of them came fast, we went in one country, they were all clear saying that they were not going to go to a lockdown. And then they issued an 8-hour notice of complete lockdown after around the hill, after having had a position they would never do it. And we were fortunate to just be proactive and be able to adapt even in those circumstances. So we got very quickly to the vast majority of our people working at home. And it's, I think, because we've had a digital foundation, we're 95% in the public cloud with our systems. We've been a leader. You know, we use Microsoft Teams extensively, the #1 user of Teams. Our video minutes went up 5x from March 12th to March 14th when a lot of these lockdowns started happening. And our audio minutes went up to 900 million audio minutes a month, which if to put that in context, that's 1,700 a year. That's 1,700 continuous years of audio every month. It's the larger than anybody else that's doing this anywhere in the world. So we had the platforms in place to be able to work virtually. And then what we started focusing on immediately, obviously the first priority was safety of our people, getting the people safe, then getting the people connected, and then taking care of the well-being of our people. We launched something called Together More Than Ever, which is a program to keep us, because our thing was, we rejected the term social distancing. We said Accenture doesn't do social distancing. We do physical distancing, but we believe in bringing people socially closer together. And the program, Together More Than Ever, was about specific tools and techniques and ways we were trying to get our people more together, socially. And that was really effective to make sure that that in this time we're spending more time talking to each other rather than less. And the same with our clients. My message to all our teams is our clients need help more. Like, just because we're not in the offices where our clients work, we need to have more touch points with our clients because they have more needs. They have concerns. They need, frankly, need people to talk to as well. So our whole focus in this has been, how can we be together more than ever and leverage technology and show others how we can use this technology to improve. One other thing I'll say is we've been helping a tremendous number of companies with adopting the technology as well. One of the ones that we talked about publicly, it was the National Health Service in the UK, where they called us up and we support the NHS, and they asked us to get them live on collaboration quickly. So we partnered with Microsoft and got 1.2 million employees of the National Health Service online in Teams within a week to, so that they could better serve their constituents. And there's many stories like that of companies moving that fast to adapt at scale.
We're seeing the best of Accenture, and kudos to you. And I really believe your culture and your technology, and of course your talent, those three are contributing to, and in every crisis, leaders emerge, and you were a leader already, but you're definitely demonstrating to certainly my customers that there's no better partner in the world. So thank you so much for what you do.
Well, I think one of the things that I'd highlight is thank you. That's very, very kind comments about Accenture. And I believe we did do very well in this, and we were kind of leading and very proactive. But it's about an ecosystem too, and that's why. And I think it's true not just of us, but the customers we work with and others. It's how do you, in this time especially, how do you work with the ecosystem? So, we worked with Microsoft to help Rolls-Royce turn their automotive factories to make ventilators. We worked with Amazon to stand up using Connect to stand up new call centers to help accelerate unemployment benefits in Texas and other states. We worked with Salesforce, as you said, for contact tracing in Massachusetts and California, other states, and worked with India. We worked with the government of India to stand up their Sati application, which is how the 1.2 billion people in India are keeping track of COVID and what's happening. And so so it's kind of working with a lot of partners and in bringing together the best solutions. And what Julie, our CEO, said right when we were in the heart of this and this was starting is when somebody on the front lines, when a first responder calls, the first thing you do is you help them and you rally the ecosystem, the community to help them. And then you ask later about how does this work and how are we going to sustain it long term? But the first thing that you do is you kind of dive in and help, and that's the right answer. I think long term for the communities we work in, it's the right answer for the purpose that our employees feel and why we do what we do, and it's the right answer long term for customers and relationships, because if you're there for customers and people when they need it most, then that serves everybody well in long term too.
Absolutely.
One of the interesting things as well is that shift that's going on in the technology landscape, right? Certain things have been massively accelerated, other things have been put on hold.
Yeah,
What are you seeing? What trends have you seen? Like what's been pulled out faster that would have taken years to get to that people have suddenly made a priority, and what's been put on the back burner?
Yeah, we've had 3 years of digital culture transformation in 3 months, at least. If you think about what's happened, and it's on a personal level as well as a business level. My wife's parents, who are now avid, active Zoom users, had no idea what it was, and they're connecting with their family in ways that are more meaningful than they were before this whole crisis happened. And we're all experiencing things like that. And the culture changing companies is massive. It's not just working virtually, it's realizing what you really need to do to get things done. Organizations are working at a speed they never did before. They're making, they had to respond to the crisis and keep their people safe and get their operations working. Now they're realizing if you strip it all back, you can move faster. If you strip it all back, you can make decisions quickly. You can get less people involved and get to the same outcome. You can work virtually. And that's going to be forever, in terms of how we operate. We won't be working from our homes forever. Those who say most people are going to work from home, I just don't believe it, because as people, we want connections. We're human beings. Where the workplace is going to be transformed dramatically. Real estate will be transformed dramatically. Urban centers and campuses will look very different, I think, because of this going forward. But it'll be about places where people come together to do things, and processes that are virtualized so you don't have to do that. So that people come together when they want to and when they need to, not because they have to. And that's what the long-term environment will look like.
I know. We walked into an office yesterday and it was like they already spaced out everything. I mean, it was like what you could fit 3-4 people into in a workspace was 2, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they were getting ready to open up, and it was interesting to watch.
But the other thing, the thing that I just have to talk about before we run out of time is cloud. Because cloud, as I said earlier, there was an exponential curve happening. And we've talked a lot about artificial intelligence before. That's kind of happening. But I think what a lot of organizations realized when the tide went out and the leaders, those that are lagging are looking at the leaders, there's a realization that companies are behind on the digital transformation and behind on the cloud, kind of the move to the cloud to really build the resilient, modernized architectures of the future and the talent and operations of the future that they need. And that's what we're seeing. And you saw it in, look at the cloud companies' results recently, and you see it in their results. We can see it in our business. The companies that are coming to us to accelerate their journey to the cloud is really, I think, one of the technology stories of what's happening now. And it's going to accelerate a lot of the cloud adoption. I believe that what we're going to see is, we're roughly 20 to 30% in the cloud on a workload basis. I think you guys have said similar things. That's going to double. That's going to go to 70+% very quickly in a matter of 3 to 4 years, and this is the time to make the move. And those that move faster are going to be in a better competitive position for whether it's a V or a U or a swoosh kind of recovery, are going to be in a better position for the recovery. So that's where we're focusing with a lot of our customers right now.
Absolutely. I agree with you. I'm a weekly contributor for ZDNet, and for the last 3 years, the most popular blog every year was when I feature your technology vision report that you author. And in February of this year, I wrote the article titled, "Can Your Enterprise Survive the Tech Clash?" Again, featuring your work. And the report said companies need to balance value with their stakeholder values in order to successfully compete in the digital economy. I feel your Tech Vision report is even more relevant now than when it was written, given the crisis we're in. So knowing what you know, what would you emphasize from the Vision report? There were 5 elements. DNA and innovative DNA, in my opinion, is one of the most important feedbacks from the report in terms of continuing to innovate and adding value. But I want your point of view in terms of long-term view of where we are and what we need to do in this pandemic. And again, any advice from the report, which again, in my opinion, is more relevant and important now than when it was written, that you want to further accentuate to our audience.
First of all, we just are putting the finishing touches on a COVID update to the vision. So we took the 5 trends of the vision and the theme, and have kind of written kind of what it means in this context. I'll send that to you. Terrific. Follow it. It'll be out, I think, in a couple of days. It really is. I think back to the book and everything. I think this is going to accelerate this kind of human plus machine view on things, because it's going to be. And that was underlying a lot of our vision as well. We talked about we the post-digital people was the theme of the vision, and And I think that's the theme that we're going to see going forward. It's not about, again, what COVID is emphasizing is how important people are and how we need to keep people connected in new ways. And I think the idea of augmenting people with better tools and technologies, I've been using the term that COVID is a time for hyper automation in what we do, but it's hyper automating in terms of giving people tools to do better business, and seeing lots of examples of that in the tools we're providing to first line responders and social service agencies and such to help them better respond to these crises. I think it's also time, when I talked to a CIO recently, and he said, COVID is bringing a new business case to innovation. And he said, innovation that sat on the shelf now is a business case. And I've got this right here, which is my Oculus. And, there's great examples we're doing at scale for very large organizations doing their training via VR, doing remote factory inspections using augmented reality and the like. I did a meeting with my team a few days ago. We toured some new things we're doing in our Sophia lab in France. A few of us from around the world. None of us were in our Sophia lab in France. We did a real tour and talked to each other and reviewed what was happening there. And I think that's an example. I don't think it doesn't mean billions of people are going to use VR overnight, but innovation. It's a time for innovation. We're seeing distributed ledger and blockchain, new applications that were kind of bubbling away at small scale, taking off. So when you look at the vision, I would say it's the human implication, thinking about how we implement the technology in a human way. It's about the technology foundation around the cloud, collaboration done in a secure fashion, and it's looking at how do we drive this innovation in very relevant ways, faster into the organization. And we talked about DARK in the vision last year, DARQ, distributed ledger, AI, artificial intelligence, extended reality, which is the R, and quantum computing is the Q. Quantum may be a little bit further out still, but the other three really accelerating as we look at how things are playing out.
These are must-read reports. As a former CMO, Chief Customer Officer, and Head of Engineering, I would build my investment thesis and future blueprint based on your reports. So I can't tell you how much I appreciate. And I'm looking very much forward to your update, because that's another meta article for me. So thank you.
Well, hey, I also want to jump in though. I mean, in this time of change, a lot of people are looking for leadership traits. What leadership qualities IT leaders, business leaders have to have. I know you've been talking a little bit about that as well with other folks. Want to share some of your traits that you think people should be thinking about as they're designing for this shift?
I think I think there's a few things. One is, I think vision, the kind of vision and hands-on leadership from the top is really important now. The leaders who are, we saw this already with kind of digital and post-digital, that CEOs were engaging and setting direction. They were getting into the technology decisions. I was saying every every CEO is becoming a technology CEO, because they have to get into the guts of these decisions. So I think that's definitely one trait. Another trait I think is deep empathy and personal connection, and that's true. It's true because of the time we're in. Connecting with the people, giving the people a sense of they're important, empathizing with this new situation employees are in. And I'm fortunate to be in nice circumstances with my number of people in my family working at home, and I have a home where I can do that. Many people are struggling. They're caring for kids, they're educating kids, they are living in circumstances where they can't comfortably work from home. And I think it's really important time to be empathetic, understand the needs of people, make sure we're adjusting policies appropriately, and leading the workforce through the changes that are coming. Those are probably two key things I'd highlight. This other thing we talked about is leaders who can think about partnering an ecosystem is really important. We've been talking about this for a few years, and I think the crisis environment, what's going to happen after it, and how fast companies need to move means you got to do it with partners. So those are a few of the leadership traits.
We're going to have to catch up on duopolies. I'll share with you something about that. That's the book I'm getting out. It's official now. It just went out publicly.
Nice.
But yeah. So we'll talk about
speaking of books, this is my, and I hate to put you on the spot, it's my last question, but I've been eagerly waiting for your second book. Is there any chance that we might be able to
updates?
Again, I hate to put you on the spot, but you got a short bestseller given your success you had with this one. So
we're doing the research that we have the themes. I can't share them all here, but we got the thesis, and Jim and I are talking about it, and have we have kind of the outline and the thesis of it. We're doing the research to support it. So there's more to follow on that front. And I like writing as well, so I've got some ideas on the fiction side as well. But those will have to wait.
I gotta wait till
please give us an opportunity to be to be early viewers and readers of your book. So I'm thoroughly looking forward to it, and really appreciate you.
We're here with the one and only Paul Doherty, Group Chief Executive Technology and Chief Technology Officer at Accenture, author of Human and Machine. And he's been on the show, episode 13, 51, 104, and now 190. You can follow him on Twitter at PAULDAUGH. Thanks a lot for being on the show, Paul.
Thank you, Paul.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Let's do it again soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Stay safe.
Thank you very much. One of the smartest people I know. I mean, just brilliant. And speaking of brilliant and smart, and we only bring the best and brightest on DisrupTV. Ray and I, it's an honor for us to have Stacey Epstein, Chief Marketing and Customer Experience Officer. Think about the power of those two functions united under one leader. That's amazing. In this role, Stacey is responsible for making meaningful long-term impact for their customers across all areas of business. You know your culture is your brand. You know the customer experience really defines loyalty and advocacy. So to be able to shape your story and your company's narrative based on purpose of delivering a beautiful experience to your stakeholders, that's just awesome. She's an accomplished go-to-market expert with 2 decades of cloud, social, mobile, enterprise technology experience. Previous to ServiceMax, Stacey served as CEO of Zinc, which was acquired by ServiceMax last year. You can follow Stacey on Twitter at STACEYEPSTEIN. Welcome, Stacey.
Thank you. So great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure.
Hey, no, thanks a lot for being on the show. You are definitely an enterprise software veteran. You've played so many different roles that are out there, and taking all those experiences together. I mean, it's a great time really to talk about some of the things that you're working on here, and of course working on with the COVID-19 coronavirus situation. But let's start there, right? I mean, there's a lot going on. You guys have been actually doing a lot of work in those areas. So let's start talking about what's hot, what's new.
Yeah, well, it's definitely a very interesting time for us at ServiceMax. And for those of you out there that don't know what ServiceMax is, we make technology and software for field service teams. And we're especially focused on asset-centric or equipment-centric companies. And in the time of COVID, I mean, it has pushed a lot of these customers and industries to the forefront. If you think about the life of a field service technician who's out on the road fixing the world's most important machines and equipment, they are not stay at home. That is not, they are a field service technician. They are in the field. And so it's certainly presented a lot of challenges for our customers. And we really are seeing a mix. As I mentioned, we focus on equipment-centric or asset-centric companies. So you think of the big biotech companies like Thermo Fisher, PerkinElmer, Abbott, Roche. I mean, these are all customers that are at the forefront of looking at how do we create tests, vaccines, treatments, right? Then you look at the big medical device companies like Medtronic, GE Healthcare, Philips, 3D Systems. They're making the actual medical devices that are being used in the hospitals. Some of them were already making ventilators. Many of them are switching to making these core machines. And so instead of sitting idle and working from home, they are in the middle of the fight and they're having to ramp up operations significantly. I mean, one of our biggest customers told me that they're running at a 4x capacity of what they were doing before COVID. And you can manage, I know, and you think of a big, huge manufacturing company that was already probably highly optimized. And you look at what does that mean to the service delivery chain? And okay, we have a set number of field service technicians that are going and installing medical devices in hospitals, and now we have to do 4 times as much. So it's put pressure on these organizations from the supply, from design to the whole supply chain and the manufacturing operation, all the way to that field job. And how do I get the right number of technicians to install and maintain and make sure that this equipment is up and running? And I think, for some of us, we sit at home and we sit on Zoom and we think, well, our world's different. I got to deal with my kids. And you think about the reality of what these companies are having to deal with. So we've been just doing our best to come forward, help them. Obviously, we're a technology company. I loved Paul's comments about the ecosystem. We're really doing what we can to help the field service ecosystem. We've created a job board that, you know, at the same time as a lot of these companies that are in the fight in the medical field, there are also plenty of other companies that make equipment for restaurants and retail stores, and they are having to furlough or lay off technicians. And so we're in a unique position where we have relationships with all of them, and these technicians that are sitting idle but maybe highly skilled can be trained quickly, can supplement these teams where they're just dying for help. So that's one of the things. Certainly our technology helps too, and we're trying to be there, but the job board is one of the things that we created. It's called Field Service Finder. So technicians that are looking for work or even just volunteer opportunities while they're sitting idle can help. We call it have the talent supply meeting the talent demand. So that's one of the things we're doing. But it's definitely interesting to be at the forefront of some of these industries that are right in the middle of, you hear the Trump's TV show and like 3 of our customers get mentioned, and it's like you realize we talk about keeping the world running, and it really makes it real in times like these.
That's awesome. That's just pure inspiration.
Yeah, it's amazing.
You for all that you do. Really, that's amazing. What's also really amazing is your recent Fast Company article that you wrote.
Yes.
And the article was titled, "Will COVID-19 Allow More Women to Become Leaders?" And you talked about the past 2 months of remote work has given the world a closer look at the juggling act that parents, and especially working mothers, are expected to take on. And you end the post with fantastic wisdom that said no one, regardless of gender, should ever be made to feel they have to choose between pursuing a big career and being a good and present parent. Stacey, can you talk to us about what motivated you to write the post, the tremendous feedback, I see the social stream that you're getting from the post, and additional insights as you put pen to paper and shared this story with the Fast Company audience?
Yeah, well, thank you for bringing it up. It's a topic very near and dear to me. As you mentioned, I've been in this enterprise tech space for almost 30 years now. So I was at Oracle in the early 90s. And it's the landscape has changed very drastically for women in many great ways. I mean, there's been a lot of movement and a lot of transformation and opportunities for women. But I think we're still at a place where we look around and, I still often find myself in a room full of men when we're at a leadership level. And I spend a lot of time thinking about why that is. I mean, I'm convinced that having more women and diversity in general in leadership positions is a positive. So hopefully we don't have to debate that. But the question is, how can we get more? And is it a pipeline problem? There's all sorts of reasons. I like to take accountability and ownership for my own situation. And so I look at what can we as women do, and what are the dynamics that come at us. And I do think there are a lot of messages that come to women from very, very young ages. And the example I use in the article, in the Fast Company article, is, I ask a room full of people in a speech at how many of you have kids, and a lot of people raise their hands. And then I say, how many of you were asked if you're going back to work after you have the kid? And all the men's hands go down and all the women's hands stay up. Nobody ever asks a man if they're going back to work, because it's just assumed that a man is going back to work, and it's assumed that the woman has to make a hard choice. And I think that as early as just in college, starting to think about, but gosh, someday I'm going to have to make that choice. And it's a self-limiting thought process for women, because we think that, I can't do that big job and also be a good and present mom. And I just so fundamentally disagree with that notion. I mean, I have 2 young kids, and I, certainly I'm home now. They're somewhere on Zoom. But you know, I would like to think that I've been very present, and I also don't think that's held me back in my career, but I know that's not true with everyone. I think COVID has put a new lens on the juggle that you described, and I call it the struggle with the juggle. And I brought up that BBC example when the guy comes in the room and like a lot of people looked at that and laughed, and we were so horrified, and we thought, oh my God, how terrible that would be. And now I know if my kid ran in, you guys would be like, oh, whatever, it happened.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we have all, men, women across the world, have come to understand that we're all juggling. Men, women, everybody across the world. If you have kids, if you have another passion, you're juggling, and we see it. And I hope that it brings a new realization to everybody that it's okay. It's okay if at 4 you got to go to soccer practice. We're all juggling. Men should juggle too. Men should be more present at home. Women should be able to advance more in their career. As I said, it's not just women. It's no parent should have to choose. Let's do both. The society will be better. We'll have more women in the workplace. We'll have more present parents at home. And I think that my optimistic view on COVID is that is one of the things that can hopefully go in a positive direction for us all.
Awesome. We got some great comments popping in here, just sharing with you. Susan Tonkin, who I know Colin over here, and Kristen Wells as well. Kristen Wells, thanks for popping those up. But yeah, definitely lots of stuff going on there on that side. There's also things that are happening around field service, right? I mean, this is exciting. We got AR, VR, IoT, Edge, everything coming back in, right? All around this, but what are you most excited about?
Well, and Paul, there were a lot of things that Paul said that I just totally agree with. And I do think that a lot of organizations, even just beyond field service, I mean, we deal, a lot of our customers are in manufacturing, right? So we're at the heart of that industry. But I think across all industries, there were a lot of companies that got caught flat-footed. And the ones that were furthest along in digital transformation, I mean, you think about IoT and connected enterprises and being able to understand the health of your equipment. And, is it running at optimum capacity? Is it going to break down soon? Should I send a technician for preventative maintenance to make sure? I mean, that's all done through technology. And the companies that were furthest along in digital transformation are completely reaping the rewards of having done it. And it's so obvious to see. And I think the ones that have been hanging back or were laggard for whatever reason are rapidly putting together their strategies for how they're going to catch up. I also think that, and hopefully it's soon, but when we come out of this and the world comes back, I personally think it's going to come roaring back, and especially for field service. You think about all of the equipment that was shut down or put idle. It is powering up all of the world's big machines that have been sitting idle. There are going to be maintenance issues. There's going to be service that needs to happen, even if it's just a health check to make sure that it's running properly. All of our customers, all of those field service teams are going to be out in the field like gangbusters. And we know that technology can help do that, can help guide them to where to go first, to what the problem is to solve it, to check the box that they've done things right. So I think we're headed for a big wave of digital transformation.
Oh my God, we saw a lot of that. I was on a flight where engine 2 would not fire. It took 2 hours to get that thing on, right? I mean, the planes that were just being added we're like, come on, like what's going on? And all the retroactive maintenance instead of the proactive maintenance and going in blind on that, just even in airlines. Can you imagine all those planes that are parked out there that just aren't flying? That was like chaos. All the rental cars that are sitting there that haven't been turned. I mean, this is going to be crazy. It's
going to be, we call it backlog, service request backlog. There's going to be like, the most important machines are going to get looked at and fixed first, and companies have got to be ready with the number of technicians on staff that are trained, the technology, as much as they can do it remote. It's gonna be a little crazy. We got to be ready for it. And I think, while companies are sitting a little idle and the office workers are at home, that's where we're really trying to help get them ready to meet the demand that's coming. And I hope it comes soon. I think we all want to get back out there, but that's what we're looking at for our customers.
That's amazing. Speaking of big machines, it was Peter Drucker who said in business, there's two main functions, innovation and marketing. And marketing is certainly disrupted in ways that we've never seen in our lifetime, including the fact that we had to figure out how to shift from face-to-face networking and storytelling and connecting to now this purely distributed digital world. So can you talk to us about what will remain the same when we think about marketing in a post-pandemic next norm? And what are some of the things that new muscles that we need to develop as companies in order to really maintain and grow those meaningful connections?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I'm an extrovert, and I like to read people's reactions. And we did a big keynote. I did a keynote which should have been at a big conference, and we decided, well, we have some things to launch. Let's just do it anyway. So I literally did a keynote from where I am right now, and it's why I have this fancy little light that I didn't have before.
You look glowing. You look glowing amazingly.
My eyes. I see the newscasters on TV. I'm like, oh, they have one. They need to take their glasses off. It's in their eyes. So we're all learning new ways to do this. It felt weird. Like I wanted to see the audience. I wanted to see, are they on their phones or are they looking at me? Are they nodding? Are they raising their hand? Like as a presenter, you can't get that feedback that you were used to. I mean, we're getting a little because people are tweeting in, but for the most part, we're like, I'm reading you two and not the room, right? And so big events, I think there's still a big learning curve. I hope there's still a demand for in-person, and I think there will be. I think we will never eliminate that need to just get together and have a conversation. But I do think, from a sales perspective, from a connecting with customers, I think right out of the gate with COVID, a lot of our customers that were in the process of implementing ServiceMax, they said, oh, well, let's figure things out. We're all going to be at home. We can't do the 3-day session to map out the implementation. Let's put it on hold. And, that happened in the first few weeks. And we were like, oh no, all these implementations aren't going to go live. And then a few weeks later, everyone settled into Zoom and wow, I can really get accomplished. And literally all of those projects have been started up again. And we're getting them done. And in some ways we're getting them done faster. So I think there will be a lot of learnings where, you don't have to fly to Japan to have a 2-hour meeting. You can have, maybe it's not 100% as successful, maybe it's 99%, but maybe you also saved so much time on either end that it ends up being more productive. So I do think you guys are going to have to do Dreamforce. We can't wait to see what Dreamforce is going to look like. And I know you guys are going to do it up big and we're ready to be part of it, but that'll be a great, I trust in the creative forces at Salesforce to do something really awesome. And I think we're all going to be watching, trying to help. And, in some ways we're all in this together. And I'm excited to see what we can do virtually with some of these big shows.
Absolutely. We started the planning for the weeks ago. So it's we're excited about it, knowing that, it's the right thing to do. At the same time, I've been to 10 Dreamforces. It would have been my 11th. And, I'm sad a little bit because it's a festival. I love it. I was a customer for 13 years. So I did so much for my company as a result of going to Dreamforce in terms of reshaping our vision and our investment thesis. So hopefully we'll be able to, do something that's equally special. So.
Yeah, we're excited to be part of it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's great. And the other thing that's popping up is like, we are saying like, let's push to get to smaller events. Yesterday, we did a live video taping in someone's offices, which I won't say where, so I don't get anyone in trouble. But it was just nice to have 6 people getting together, sitting down, having that conversation for like 2-3 hours. Like next thing you know, it was 10:30 at night, right? Just to be able to have that conversation, catch up. I mean, we're going to be yearning for that
Totally.
I mean, we have our event October 27th through 29th. We're still going to do it. It's not going to be 300 people, but it's going to be 200, right? And it's not going to be, you know, people are going to be sitting a little bit further apart. People are going to be tested. They're going to be okay. But the mandate is people want to come. We had 10 people register already. He said, look, I'm not traveling for any other event this year, but I'm coming to yours, right? And you're seeing that kind of shift, which is pretty wild. So it gets me really excited about that. Last question real quick. What are we seeing in terms of customer experience changes with customers, right? Like what changes in the way that you're delivering customer experience, customer success? What matters to you?
Yeah, you mentioned this in your intro, the kind of the two worlds of marketing and customer experience. It's been really fun for me because I do think the two of them really feed off each other. The more in touch you are with your customers and what they're doing and what they want, that's what you should be marketing, right? Is where are the successes and where are the desires in the customer base? We've certainly increased our focus on customer experience in the last year. There is one person other than me on our customer experience team, but it is a cross-functional. So there's multiple people that make up customer experience, although there is only one direct report to me that kind of runs customer experience. And we've done started with lots of research and analysis on just surveying partners, customers, employees on what are we doing great? What can we do better? And I think that's really at the heart of, it's like everything, data should be at the heart of what you do. And so that understanding of customers, of where they are, of where to meet them. I mean, one of the things we learned, which I brought up earlier, is, where are they in their progression of digital transformation? And we learned that we were giving like a one size fits all message and approach to every customer. And so here's our product and here are the great things that it does. And that resonated for the middle section. But for the ones that were still doing things on pen and paper, they were like, well, I haven't even automated scheduling yet. And there were others that like already had sensors in their shop floor and were ready to talk about, the next wave of AI. And so we learned we had to work with customers where they are in their maturity curve. And then that translates back to marketing, right? Then you got to make sure you're talking to prospects so we really kind of changed our approach to how we work with customers and how we talk to the market in general. And so that's one of the big things, but it comes from data. So I think that analysis and that real true understanding of where are you strong, where are you weak, and focusing on doubling down on the strengths and solving the weaknesses, that's been our big focus from customer experience and involving every team.
That's awesome.
We're live here with Stacey Epstein, Chief Marketing and Customer Experience Officer at ServiceMax. You can follow her on Twitter at Stacey Epstein. And thank you so much for being on the show, and thank you for sharing your insights.
Thank you, Stacey. You're terrific. Thank you so much. Thank you. That's amazing. Amazing insights, and the power of combining customer experience, responsibilities, and marketing, I think is just a brilliant move. Speaking of brilliant, our next guest, Steve Wilson.
All brilliant.
Steve Wilson, Vice President, Principal Analyst at Constellation Research, focusing on digital identity and privacy. Steve's advisory services include security practice benchmarking, privacy engineering, privacy impact assessment. He's provided advice on national ID frameworks for governments of Hong Kong, New Zealand, Australia, Singapore, Macau, Malaysia, and others. He's a must follow, especially as one of the world's top experts when we talk about security, distributed ledgers, blockchain, on Twitter at Steve_Lockstep, LOCKSTEP. Welcome back, Steve, to DisrupTV.
Thanks, Vala. You're so kind. Good to be here.
Good to have you.
Hey, thanks a lot for jumping in. And you wrote something, and I wanted to jump straight into this. You wrote something that caught everyone by surprise, and it was pretty interesting. And I'm going to start with this because people were shocked. They're like, wait, you want contact tracing? You're in on contact tracing? But then you brought something else very interesting. So you're talking about framing this between the privacy safety trade-off in this coronavirus crisis. So let's hear what you think.
Yeah, look, my instinct, Ray, and you and I went over this a couple of months ago, is privacy dead? Is COVID going to change everything? And my instinct was very defensive, and it was like, no, it's not. you have to understand that privacy is a human right, and we're not going to trade it off, et cetera, et cetera. And I also pointed out that privacy regimes around the world actually cope with this kind of thing pretty well. If you have a safety issue or a public health issue, then every privacy regime, GDPR, CCPA, they all yield to public health. So I was relaxed and comfortable about this. But then I had my own epiphany, because people who I know and like and respect in the privacy world were using contact tracing as a political example, and they were calling out governments who admittedly have not done a great job on contact tracing. And technology is not the natural place for a lot of governments. So we saw some contact tracing solutions that were a bit like surveillance. We saw movements in Israel to sort of be grasping telecommunication information and literally tracking people. And I saw around the world, pretty quickly with Google and Apple and others, we settled on tracing. We settled on Bluetooth-based technology so that cell phones could tell you when you had been close to somebody who might be infected. And this stuff is pretty innocuous. If it's done well, it is innocuous. It's no worse than anything else that your cell phone does. And yet I saw a lot of reaction, a lot of like visceral, let's call it hatred of governments. And I thought, in a time of crisis, we're not watching a movie here. We are seeing tens of thousands of people die in ways that have never happened in peacetime. And I was disrupted by that. I'm shocked and ashamed, actually. So I got off my moral high horse and said, look, for me, I'm a wealthy white guy. I'm very privileged. Privacy is academic. This app is not going to harm me. So I've come to the party. I've said, I'm going to get off my moral high horse. I'm not going to pretend that contact tracing is actually going to damage me. And I can do my bit, just a little bit, to use contact tracing to try and get the public health system up and running. I don't think it's a big deal, but to make it a big deal, that was my personal epiphany. Like, why are we politicizing this? We are always asking governments to not overreact to national security. 9/11 surveillance, the legislative response around the world to 9/11 was a horrible overreach. But I find that privacy people are overreaching. Like, we should not be overreacting to contact tracing in this way. We have an opportunity to come to the party. It gives the government a break. Easy for me to say it in Australia because the government's done a fantastic job in Australia. And they've done a very unusual job in Australia. We have a fiscally conservative government in Australia, not unlike the Conservatives in the UK, not unlike the Republican Party in the US, but they did a huge fiscal ideological backflip, and they've gone into significant debt. They've nationalised the private health system in Australia. They are compensating employees for staying at home. They are compensating employers for shutting down non-essential businesses. We have now, overnight in Australia, we have gone into debt to the tune of about 20% of GDP.
Wow,
now that huge. It is a huge ideological backflip. So the politics of this is important. And I figure that if our government was willing to do that, then I'm willing to come off my moral high horse and not make such a big deal about privacy.
Yeah. I mean, Steve, in the US, the first recorded COVID death was March 2nd. By June 2nd, it's likely will be over 100,000. 100,000 deaths in 3 months. We're at 87,000 now. So no doubt in my mind we'll be north of 100 in 3 weeks. So when we're talking about not being able to test at volume, we're talking millions per day. We've done in the US, I think 10 million in total. And the Harvard medical study says we should be at 5 to 6 million per day in order to safely reopen businesses without contact tracing, whether it's manual, digital, using Bluetooth with Apple and Google and others, short of a vaccine, which is not likely to be calendar 2020. You're right. Armchair critics with no privacy concerns shouldn't have, fake outrage about something that's critically important for us to safely reopen. How do I go back to my company's offices that are 70 floors tall with thousands of people normally in and out if we don't have this capability to know when there is a positive diagnosis? How quickly can we let others know you need to potentially self-quarantine? And it's really
there's still a lot of nuance here. There's a lot of solutionism happening, and Naomi Klein wrote a brilliant piece a couple of days ago about solutionism in the Silicon Valley, and God help us, certain trillionaires are capitalizing on this. So there's a lot of nuance here, and there's a lot of bad behavior still, and there is overreach, and I don't discount that. The other thing that needs to be said is that contact tracing is no silver bullet. Some of these apps don't work really well. They've been oversold. But in Australia, we're not overselling contact tracing. We're using it as part of a well-established contact tracing public health response. Yeah. And the people I speak to and respect, public health policy people, they say, contact tracing, the app is just another signal that's going to help. And to me, I want a proportionate response. In Australia, we have had 100 deaths, and we thank our lucky stars. And the reason for that is complicated. And the reason why other countries are doing less so is complicated. And there's no way am I saying that an app is going to change any of that overnight. But if an app can help, and if an app can save some lives, we've got to be proportionate, and we've got to not make a political example out of this. I don't make a political whipping boy out of an innocuous Bluetooth app. And I find that this is my epiphany, and I'm willing to say this publicly. I am shocked by the overreaction, and I want to do my bit. There's people saying contact tracing needs to be fully decentralized. Let's do it on a blockchain, and let's have a peer-to-peer alert system. I don't want a peer-to-peer alert system. You have to remember that this is a notifiable disease. If I get COVID, or if I'm even suspected of having COVID, my name, my date of birth, my Medicare number, my medical history is going to go to the public health department as part of this, decades-old protocol. And we are massively overreacting if we think that we can have a fully decentralized blockchain-based, peer-to-peer thing. That is academic, and I find it ridiculous that we can spend months having these academic arguments when people are dying.
That's a great segue, really, to blockchain productization, right? I think that's one of the things you've been looking at as well. Right. The COVID crisis, people, of course, it's blockchain. We're going to try blockchain on everything. Let's try blockchain on COVID. Let's try blockchain on, no, we get that, right? But there's real productization going on. So how are people going from pilot to production? Because we had all these pilots. It was like, oh, I blockchain enabled my dog. I blockchain enabled art, right? You're like, okay, let's get real here. But you've got a bunch of critical success factors as well.
And before you answer, I want you to relive the moment about 50 minutes ago when Paul said that he believes, from Accenture's point of view, 3 years of digital transformation and acceleration and urgency has been compressed to 3 weeks. And I want your point of view. When you look back from the beginning of this crisis to where we are now, has there been a stronger movement towards productization of blockchain and the need for distributed ledgers?
The short answer is yes. The long answer is that a lot of that push is still a little bit illusory or a little bit unsustainable. Okay. What I've been doing before COVID came along, for some time, I've been perplexed by the success rate or the lack of success rate for blockchain productization. So most analysts will tell you that 80% or 90% of blockchain pilots stop at the pilot and they don't proceed. Now, you can look at that many different ways. Fast fail has been one of our Silicon Valley slogans for a long time. So maybe it's not a bad thing that if you can do a blockchain pilot quickly and learn something, and then decide that it's not the ideal technology for your use case, then that's cool. But nevertheless, there's clearly a level of disappointment, and people were expecting a better hit rate than that. So what's going on? Now, a lot of people have been talking about use case selection for a long time, and we're not adding to that that debate much. What we're trying to do is to work out that if you've committed to a use case, who are the people that need to be around the table when you're designing your blockchain pilot, and how do you get from pilot to production? We have along the way talked to a number of absolute paragon use cases. Trade documentation, I think, is still the best one. What's interesting? I spent probably 3 hours interviewing trade documentation people, vice presidents, senior executives, and technology people that are in those consortia. And you know what? You can talk for 3 hours and nobody will use the word trust. A lot of that magic right? And this is a serious thing because technology, every 10 years, there's a new technology that creates trust, and you sprinkle it on something, and all of a sudden we're getting on and we're collaborating. And no, we're not. The thing about blockchain is that it's a very cool technology in some cases for making sure that a whole bunch of people in a network are seeing the same data at the same time, and they all know that they're seeing the same data at the same time. And if you can do that, then you get a whole lot of cool benefits. You can rewind disputed transactions. You can fast track dispute resolution. You can eliminate a hell of a lot of paper. The cost of dispute resolution in international shipping is something like 2 or 3% of net. It's a top line cost contribution. It's about the same as the cost of the diesel fuel. So it was put to be by one of the trade documentation people that they talk directly to CFOs of big cargo companies, and they talk about demurrage, which is this centuries-old term for the cost of what happens when something doesn't come off the ship. So if somebody's let down the team and there's an element of a complicated shipping transaction is missing, it's called demurrage. It costs billions of dollars, and there's a distinct possibility now that blockchain technology can give you better information and reduce demurrage. It's not about trust. It's not about smart contracts. It's certainly not about crypto and tokenization and stuff. It's really kind of dry, and it's kind of uncool in the way that mainframe is uncool. But at Constellation, we've been saying for a long time that mainframe is important, and business transformation and ERP is important. And what's really hilarious? I think in 10 years' time, blockchain will be like the new ERP, and it will be as cool as ERP. And the cool kids will move on to something else. And meanwhile, the CFOs will be talking about demurrage and kind of grown-up stuff, and that will change the world.
My last question to you, respectful of your time, is self-sovereign identity cool? Tell us about the latest trends in identity. What does sovereignty mean in the context of identity?
Yeah, well, sovereignty is one of these things that, the time has come for sovereignty because we're all so pissed off and angry about exploitation online. It's one of the... And with that backdrop, that's what's energized a lot of this sort of visceral reaction to contact tracing technology, because we don't trust governments anymore. So the hell if I'm trusting a contact tracing app. So a lot of this is political. And the funny thing about self-sovereign identity, so that's another major research project at the moment. And we're doing a lot of in-depth interviews and workshops with people and unpacking the politics of this thing. And most people will admit that it's a political push to kind of restore the power imbalance. So my question is simply, and in 30 seconds, if you think that you're going to turn around the national governments who you don't like, if you're going to turn around the big digital companies that are exploiting us, if you're going to get better digital democratization by owning identity, we don't even know what own identity means. So we've been talking about owning data and owning identity. Is identity something that you can be sovereign over? And there's some really good political scientists out there who say, oh, no, that's kind of a category error. What you can do is that you can make identity more portable, and you can absolutely use distributed technology and client-side technology to help people manage their keys to prove, if I want my social security number to not get stolen, why don't you wrap it in a cryptographic verifiable wrapper, verifiable identity, verifiable claims? That's good technology. And why don't you make sure that if Vala has interest in my social security number, it's coming from me, and it's coming from a trusted client-side device. It hasn't come from the cloud. So you've got proof of possession, you've got proof of control, you've got chains of custody and delegation. Cool stuff. Question is that sovereignty? No, it's portable. It's portability of information. And I actually say, so one of my provocations to people, and I admit it's purely provocative, it's probably not helpful, but I say to people, forget about identity, because what really matters and the really big play in the next 10 years is going to be the portability of verifiable data. Yeah. And, my identity is just bits of data. It's just, we should not be anthropomorphizing this stuff. It's just data about me. So how do I make sure that data is reliable and portable and verifiable? And there are some very cool technologies for this that are now settling out, and the industry I think is really healthy.
Do you think as we shift to a distributed digital higher education model, where your credentials need to be mobile as you shift from potentially campus to campus, more of an Android operating system versus a closed Apple iOS. Will there be certain industries that are going to drive universal identity and standards that can help that mobility of data and ownership of that data?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So distributed ledger is a nice place again for finding data. One of the coolest things about the blockchain, the original blockchain, was availability. It's always there. It never goes away. You can find stuff. So the idea about using blockchain is like an added reliability layer in the cloud. There's some goodness there. And certainly being able to find your educational credentials and all of your lifelong learnings. The idea of lifelong learning record, US education with the help of Salesforce and Microsoft and some big companies and some small companies, they're doing some great work. My considered opinion is that the more important technology here is actually client-side stuff for proof of possession, proof of control. I think that the way that you distribute the data, whether it's a blockchain or a good old-fashioned database, I think that that's less important. But you know, the innovation, the disruption dynamic here is important. A lot of stuff has been shaken up, and a lot of things that we said couldn't be done are actually being done, and that's good. That's great.
Wow, we are here live with Steve Wilson, VP and Principal Analyst at Constellation Research. You can follow him at Steve_Lockstep. He's been on 7 times, and each time fascinating. Thanks a lot, man.
Cheers. Have a great weekend, folks. Stay safe.
All right, take care. See you around.
Ray, he's a big brain. Honestly, there's a handful of times where we bring true expert, deep insight, deep and wide, and you're lucky to have some deep brains surrounding you at Constellation. Speaking of deep brains and people that inspire us, next week, episode 191, we have Milan Rao, president at Wipro. And they're doing amazing work, just from philanthropic to technological to transformational. And as president, he's really shaping Wipro to be a global powerhouse in terms of digital transformation. We have Jim McLevy, co-founder of Square and author of Innovation Stack, who's going to be talking about his book and his company. And one of our favorites, she can easily be a co-host anytime you and I are not available, and she's proven that number of times. In fact, I think if we survey our audience, they might want her to.
They might like her more than us.
Yeah. That's why we're not going to survey our customers.
We're not going to survey the audience.
Yes. Liz Miller, Vice President, Principal Analyst at Constellation Research, another big brain with big personality. So when Liz comes on, you got to fasten your seatbelts, get your popcorn out, and get ready to go on a roller coaster ride of incredible education and inspiration. She's awesome. If it's Friday, it's DisrupTV. Ray, amazing guests this show. I mean, just amazing guests. So your closing remarks.
Yeah, I want to thank our producer. We've been getting some great guests here. I also want to address the question. I think this is the number one question. I think, Vala, you and I are getting. Will Wang and Vala Afshar take sponsorships on DisrupTV show? I don't know. We'll see. We're debating about it. I know a lot of people have asked. We're trying to think of a good way to do it if we do that. So if you're interested in sponsorships, drop us a line. We'll figure out what we're going to do. We do want to up the show and up the game here. So we're going to do a couple things. So just watch. Maybe we'll consider it. But if you're serious about it, let us know. We just want to. We're testing the waters here because we want to do some interesting things with production as well, getting this out to folks. But other than that, stay safe, everyone. We're almost at the end of this thing. I think tail end. We're starting to see people open up. We're starting to see people in the lockdown somewhere as data and other things come into play. And I think it's going to be very, very interesting. So thanks a lot, everyone. If it's Friday, it's DisrupTV. Take care.
We'll see you next week. Thanks, everyone.